So today I'm going to finish off our discussion on what is Chinese medicine. And the last few episodes, we've been talking about pieces of what Chinese medicine is and how we define it and characteristics of it. And so today I'm going to finish off this and just talk about something that we call the eight principal patterns, or kind of a schematic of how we characterize diseases in Chinese medicine in a broad way. And so there's eight principal patterns, and I'm going to go through each of these in pairs. There's four pairs. The first pair that we talk about is whether the disease is on the internal or the external. You can have interior diseases and exterior diseases. A lot of times diseases can go back from one level to the other. They can begin as exterior diseases and then enter into the interior. So, for example, an exterior disease in Chinese medicine, it typically involves kind of the more superficial levels of the body. It hasn't penetrated down into the organ systems or down into the blood levels or the nutritive levels of the body. It's still on the exterior, on the surface of the body. And in Chinese medicine, the physiology and the acupuncture meridians and the channels, they flow from superficial levels down to deeper and more internal levels within the body. So for a very classic example of this would be an exterior, what we call Shanghan or Zhongfeng wind strike pattern. And in this type of a case, it's exterior. The patient might have runny nose and chills, fevers, a floating pulse. They may have headache or neck stiffness. And all of that means that the disease is on the exterior of the body. It's on the superficial channels and it hasn't gone into the interior. Now, that's different from the interior where pathogens can enter the body and they go to deeper levels, they start affecting the organs. So, for example, that same pathogen that you have on the exterior can then enter a deeper level and it can cause high fevers and thirst and a big flooding pulse and major sweating. And when you have something like that happens, it's now coming into the interior, what we call the chi level of the body. And so one of the first things that we differentiate in Chinese medicine is whether it is an exterior disease or an interior disease. The second out of the eight, um, well, the second pair out of the four pairs or eight principles is the categorization of, is it an excess or a deficiency problem? So excess means you have too much of something bad, and deficiency means you don't have enough of something good. So, for example, if you have, like the last example I gave, if you have somebody who has a high fever, a large sweat, very thirsty, big flooding pulse, that's an example of an excess heat pathogen in the chi level. And that means there's too much of a pathogen and it's causing excessive heat and excessive consumption. Now, that is in contrast to what would be a deficiency pattern, where let's say you have a patient who's very tired, they look pale, they're anemic, they are very slow, they don't have much energy. That means the body is deficient in either the yang energy, the qi energy, the blood, whatever it is, there's something in the body that doesn't have enough. And so therefore the patient is deficient, and that's what's causing their health problems. So the second thing that we try to differentiate is it excess or deficient? The third pairing is of heat and cold. So pathogens can be hot and pathogens can be cold. And we talked about this a little bit earlier, how initially in Chinese medicine, a lot of the thought had developed around cold pathogens, and later on, more and more thought went into articulating warm pathogen patterns. But cold, it's not just in those scenarios. We can also have cold in the sense of patients um, who feel cold. Their hands are cold, their feet are cold. You touch their belly and it feels cool. You look at their tongue and you see cool signs in the tongue. You may have too much cold in the body. You can also have not enough kidney yang, which causes there to be not enough warm energy in the body. And in that scenario, you can also feel cold. Heat is the opposite of that, where you can have either excess heat or deficient heat, whether you have too much heat that has accrued in the body or not enough of the cooling substance in your body. And so that person might feel very hot. They may feel irritable. They may have vivid dreams. They may have a fast pulse. They may always be distracted. All kinds of different things can be manifested by heat within the body. So that's the third category. And then the fourth category that we use to categorize is yin and yang. And so yin and yang is the fundamental basis of all of the other categories. And it's kind of the root base of how we think about all diseases in Chinese medicine. And so in yin and yang, when we try to differentiate yin and yang, we're trying to differentiate a couple things. Is the pathogen a yin pathogen or a yang pathogen? Is it, for example, dampness is a disease concept we use in Chinese medicine, and it's an accumulation of too much fluid or fluid improperly distributed in the body. And fluid is a yin type of pathogen because it's a fluid, it's substantive, it doesn't move in by itself naturally. It's a yin type pathogen, while, for example, fire is a yang pathogen. If you get a burn wound, that's considered a yang pathogen. So we look at yin and yang, and we try to classify whether the disease is a yin pattern or a yang pattern. And that also depends on the type of patient that it's presenting in. So people also themselves tend towards yin patterns of diseases or yang patterns of diseases. And it kind of depends on what your constitution is and whether you have relative excesses of yin energy or yang energy or relative deficiencies of those. So putting that together, where we look at interior, exterior, excess or deficiency, cold or hot, yin or yang, that gives us a general categorization of the patient and the disease and the general direction that we have to go in regards to treatment. So that's a little bit about what is Chinese medicine, and it's just a brief overview. Of course, the whole talk of what is Chinese medicine and the nuances of it is much more detailed than that. But just to give a sense of what we are thinking and talking about in our clinic, that's a little bit about that. If you want to find out more about what we do, you can visit us at houstonacupuncture.com, and we will see you next time.